This is the Believe in Texans podcast alongside six-year NFL veteran, former Houston Texans wide receiver Cecil III. I am Patrick Creighton, host of Area 45 on your flagship station for the Houston Texans, Sports Radio 610. Joined this week with a very special guest, 5-year NFL veteran, Super Bowl champion. Got to get that one in there. He hosts the Believe in Jaguars podcast. He's also part of the Jaguars radio broadcast. He is Bucky Brooks. Bucky, appreciate you taking some time to join us today as Texans and Jaguars getting ready on Sunday.
Yeah, no, it should be fun. And this is a game where, obviously, from the Jaguar standpoint, it's a chance to kind of reset the record because now it's a division game. And we all know how bitter that rivalry is between H-Town and Jacksonville and how it continues to grow. I think it should be a lot of fun on Sunday.
So, Bucky, I'm going to start with what is a question you've probably been asked, I don't know, all season long. What is wrong with the Jaguars offense? Specifically, is it something with Trevor Lawrence? They've now lost 8 straight games started by Trevor Lawrence, and it goes back to a game last year where he leaves the field hopping on one foot. They put him back out there the next week. He gets another injury. They put him back out there the next week. He gets a third injury. I felt like they really did a disservice to him with how hard they pushed him through all those injuries. Now they're off to a slow start. Is this something related to Trevor Lawrence, or is there a bigger issue with the offense overall?
I'll say this. One, it's a team-wide issue. The number one thing that you have is when you've lost as many games as the Jaguars have lost in the last, I would say, year, you have a confidence problem. And so the confidence is down. And so sometimes when you look at young people, and I call them young people because I still see them as young pros, guys get discouraged. And as much as we like to think that these are grown men who have dealt with a lot of success in their lives, they still are very much like high schoolers. If things don't go well early, man, you have to do a lot to try and bring them out of that rut they're in. And when you compound a series of losses on top of each other, now the first thing that goes wrong, you go back into that pit like, oh, here we go again. As it relates to Trevor Lawrence, some of that is in play. Trevor has lost 8 straight games as a starting quarterback. And even though you would think that a pro quarterback would be immune to that, he hears the outside noise. So you have that losing streak. You also have the added pressure of being a big money quarterback, where everyone is talking about how much money you make on the daily. And whenever you miss a throw, or whenever the team falters in a key situation, or whenever the team loses, it always goes back to, oh, Trevor Lawrence is $55 million quarterback. They shouldn't be doing this. Why did they pay him all that? It's a lot of noise that you have to block out. And so I think all of that has really impacted the way they go about their business on the field, because you have a team that lacks confidence, and the lack of confidence has started to erode the execution and some of the toughness that has been kind of built on the team.
Let me ask you this, because I'm always a firm believer, to help out a quarterback, you have to have some type of running game. And when you look at the running game and you look at the Jacksonville Jaguars roster in whole, one of their best players is Travis Etienne. And I'm looking at the statistics. Game 1 against the Dolphins, 12 carries. Game 2 against the Browns, 13 carries. And then the debacle last Monday night, 11 carries. Now, he did have 2, 3, and 4 catches in those respective games. But that's under 20 touches per game. Wouldn't you say, or do you think he needs to be involved more to help out Trevor Lawrence in offense?
Okay, I'm going to say this to you, Cecil, because you and I can relate high school ball.
Okay.
Best players make the biggest impact on the game. So one of your jobs as a coach, best players got to touch the ball. And as much as we want to operate in a little bit of a democracy, when it comes to winning games, the best players are going to touch it over and over again. And when you're in a losing streak like the Jaguars are, man, it has to be a thing where if I'm going to go down, I'm going to go down with my best players determining the outcome of the game. And so as great as it was that the Jaguars wanted to enter the regular season, kind of have a man, the ball is going to go wherever it goes. Now, sometimes it has to be a little more intentional when it comes to who touches the ball. The last part of that, you talk about the running game. The thing about the running game, it takes everyone to be patient when the running game is not clicking right out the gate. Some of those 1 and 2 yard gains in the first quarter become 8, 10, 15 yard gains in the fourth quarter. But the only way you get to that side is you got to keep handing the ball off and you have to keep doing it. And so that's one where the head coach and the play caller have to be in sync that, no, we're going to run the ball and we're going to be doggedly determined that we're going to get the running game going. And so it takes a little of that arrogance to stay with it and be persistent with it, because eventually it will crack. You just got to give it enough opportunities to make it happen.
Bucky, for the Jaguars, you meant like Travis Etienne and Tank Bigsby's a pretty good back too. And, you look at their receivers. Their receivers are good. Brian Thomas Jr. is a good receiver. Gabe Davis is a terrific deep threat. Christian Kirk's a really good receiver. How do they get their offense going?
Well, a lot of it starts with the quarterback. And in the pro game, a lot of it is, okay, you ask the quarterback, what are the favorite concepts that like the back of your hand? The ones that you can close your eyes and you know exactly where everything is going. You can exhaust all the options and the route. So the first thing is you go to the quarterback and find 4 or 5 concepts that he feels great about. The next thing is, okay, who are the best players? How can we get them the ball? How can we put them in positions where they're more likely to touch the ball within those concepts? And then it's, hey, let's make sure those guys get the ball on plays that don't even require a read, whether it's smoke screens, bubble screens, pitch sweeps, reverses, end arounds. The best players have to touch the ball. And you have to be very intentional about making sure that, hey, by the end of the first half, I want to make sure that X, Y, and Z have X amount of touches. And someone has to keep up with that. And, I think you do less. So fewer concepts, fewer plays, and more intent in terms of who I want to touch the ball and who I want to have the greatest impact on the game.
Let me ask you this. I feel like a lot of money was given to the defensive side of the ball. Whether that's bringing Savage over or Eric Armstead, you paid Josh Hines Allen, I believe his name is now. Big amount of money to sack the quarterback. You invested number 1 overall in Mr. Walker. So much money's going to that, right? And I'll be honest with you. Week 1, you probably should have beat the Dolphins. You don't fumble in the goal line. You win that game. You go up. You probably hold on to win that game. And you hold the Dolphins to what, 20 points that week? If you're telling me you're holding the Dolphins to 20, you're doing a good job. You're doing a good job. Browns, you held them to 18, right? And then last Monday, we know what happened. But do you switch up your defensive strategy this week after the Bills figured out, hey, he likes Ryan likes to be in man coverage? Do you switch it out going into the Texas game this week? Because it's a copycat league. It's a copycat league. So everybody's going to watch Monday night. They're going to be like, hey, okay, you got Devin Lloyd on James Cook, first play of the game. We're going to exploit that. We're going to do all these crazy motions and boom, boom, boom. See what the matchup is. We're going to exploit that. Do you change things up or do you stay who you are?
I think you have to stay who you are. I think when you look at their personnel, they're built to be man-to-man on the perimeter. Inside, that was a nice discovery and find by the Buffalo Bills. What they did, because everyone is talking about that, it wasn't the outside guys that were having issues. It's linebackers on backs. So now your thing has to be, how are we going to start handle these situations where we have linebackers on backs? Can we tweak the man coverage where sometimes we drop the safety down on the back and let the linebacker kind of be the floater in the middle? There have to be some other things, because I'm sure this isn't the first time that Ryan Nielsen and Christian Sharp and their defensive staff have been hit with the running back being a factor out of the backfield. Part of the reason they went to this defensive scheme is because in previous years, they tried to do a lot and weren't good at anything. They tried to do more zone coverage. And I would say, I think it takes more instincts, awareness, and intelligence to be a good zone team than a man-to-man team, because there's a nuance to playing zone that you don't necessarily need in man. If I am the Jaguars and I want to play fast and I want my guys to not have to think a lot, we're going to line up and play man-to-man. Your guy's your guy, and you got to win your individual battle.
Bucky, we've seen so far the Texans offense, which was expected to come into this year. It's a very high-powered offense. They've struggled finding third gear, and a lot of the reasons they've struggled finding third gear is they haven't been able to pass protect very well. They've given up pressure up the middle, and last week, not only did they give up pressure up the middle, they made a very unfortunate decision to try to go one-on-one with Jonathan Grenard with a rookie tight end. As you can imagine, that did not work out very well for them. How do the Jaguars match up with the Texans as far as, do they have the personnel where they can get pressure up the middle? And a lot of these pressures have come on stunts and things like that, where really the Texans center, whether it was Juice Scruggs or Jared Patterson, has struggled to pick up or identify who he's supposed to pick up. That pressure has come up the middle, and then on those overloads on one side where they tried to use the tight end hasn't been effective. Are the Jaguars able to execute something like that?
Well, you're talking about a Jaguars team that enters the game with only 5 sacks. And even though we talked about Josh Hines Allen and Trayvon Walker, 2 guys that you expect to play at a blue chip level, I would say Hines Allen has played at that, even though the numbers don't reveal that. Trayvon Walker has to play better. Can they create problems? I would say the problems they can create are more on the edges than on the interior, because there's not a dominant interior pass rusher on the team. Eric Armstead can kick inside, but he wants to play more outside than inside. They have to find someone that can generate the pressure. The thing that they will see is they will see that the Minnesota Vikings gave C.J. Stroud and that offensive line a lot of problems by changing the picture a few different ways and doing some different things. That has not been the way that the Jags operate in terms of a lot of exotic disguise and exotic looks, but they do try and keep a shell and change the picture. You may see some of that stuff, but yeah, I think if you look on tape and see that they've had issues with line games and stunts and those things, you try and add those in, but it's different because you got to have the personnel to be effective doing that. If not, it's just a lot of activity that's going to lead to the same result.
Let me hear your thoughts on C.J. Stroud. We all love him in Houston. I think he's beloved across the NFL surface, right? But let me hear your thoughts on how good, or do you think where he's at as far as C.J. Stroud?
Okay, full disclosure, I've known C.J. since he was in high school. There's an event in Dallas where Elite 11, the opening, I was the head coach of a team that had C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young at quarterback. Bryce Young was the guy that came in with all the hype. C.J. Stroud walked away with the MVP award, much like it's played out in the National Football League. So what I can tell you about C.J. Stroud back then, and it kind of disappoints me the last time I talked to him after I won our game, he told me he quit doing this. So one of the things that helped C.J. Stroud unlock his special ability in high school was playing the game of chess. There's a trainer, a guy named Seth Mikowski, who is this world-class mental performance trainer, and he uses chess as a way of unlocking those skills so you can attack and think multiple moves ahead of time. C.J. Stroud learned how to play chess that weekend we were together, and he became like a superstar taking some of the coaching. What I learned from that experience is last year, everyone thought it was going to be a little slower for him to pick it up, but something happened with him and Bobby Sloyd where it clicked, and man, his game exploded right about week 3 when we saw them the first time around in Jacksonville playing with 4 backup linemen, and he absolutely shredded the Jags. This dude is amazing. This dude is exactly what I thought it would be when I watched him at Ohio State play against Georgia. Terrific pinpoint passer, has all the stuff that you want. But I think the underrated part of who he is an alpha dog competitor. I don't think people appreciate that part about him, maybe because he's so devout and he talks about his faith and those things. They may not see that part of him. This dude is an animal when it comes to competing. The team feeds off of that. And the worst thing that happened to the Jags is that Minnesota smacked the Texans around, because I know the next time that CJ walks out, he is going to want to make sure that everyone knows how good he is and how good this offense is.
Bucky, you mentioned about, and look, I think we all kind of feel that way after the Texans, basically got tossed around by the Vikings. They were going to look to come out with a chip on their shoulder and get that taste out of their mouth. Let's correlate that to the Jaguars, because they're 0-3, and their season is hanging by a thread. And they should be extremely desperate to get a victory right now, especially after the way the game went with Buffalo last week, where they were just non-competitive. Mm-hmm. Is this a game where you expect they are going to come out ready to fight? Or you mentioned earlier about confidence. Is this a team that if they get down, 2 scores early, are they going to lose their confidence?
2 ways to think about it. I'm going to give you the Texans' way to think about going into this game. If I'm D'Amico Ryans in the Texans, I'm putting everything into the first quarter. I want to hit the Jaguars with a haymaker early, because if you got a team that is already reeling from confidence, You don't want to give them anything good to build upon as they get into the later stages. So if I'm D'Amico Ryans, I'm this offense or whatever, I am talking about let's start fast. Let's get after them defensively. Let's not let them breathe. I'm not easing into the game plan. I'm heating them up. I want to knock Trevor around. I want to see if I can force some negative plays to test their mental going into the second, third, and fourth quarters. If I'm the Jaguars, my goal is to play the game in 4 separate games. I want to play a 15-minute game in the first quarter, 1 play at a time, to see if we can hang in there. And if we're able to hang in there the first quarter, I then want to gather the team up and say, all right, we're right where we need to be. Let's win the second quarter and go into halftime with the game at a certain level. I then want to go into halftime and say, guys, we're right there. Now let's find a way to finish the game in the third quarter. And then if we get to the point where it's within 7 points in the fourth quarter, now it's about challenging guys to find ways to win. So there's a level of desperation coming from the Jags that the Texans must be aware of. And then there's also a thing where Doug Peterson has to build their confidence 1 series, 1 quarter at a time to give them a chance to win in the fourth quarter.
Let you talk about building confidence. How do you, because that's interesting to me. And it's true, but it's interesting to me. But how do you build confidence in the grown men in the NFL? Like, what do you think? How do you do that from a Doug Peterson standpoint on the offensive side, defense side? How do you build that confidence and get them going? Because they got to believe. Because if you go down 0-4 on the season, that the odds are against you that you're going to make the playoffs, right? They always talk about the 0-3 start. But how do you build that confidence if you're the Jacksonville Jaguars?
Well, you got to go all the way back to your basic stuff, right? And look, it's a cooperation between the coaches and the players. Hey, guys, what are the things that we believe we do best? And I'm going to do those same things over and over and over again. Even if you know it, if the Texans know it or whatever, hey, man, we're running these same plays because we feel like we do them better than anything else. If anything, man, you do less, not more. You try and build their confidence up by giving them things that they've done a million times. We talk about time on task, all the reps in OTAs, all the reps in mini camps. What are the things that we do really well? Starts with the quarterback, starts with each individual player. I'm running around, if I'm Doug Peterson, with a little notebook. What is Travis like? What is Christian Kirk like? What is Evan Ingram if he plays? What are those guys like? Okay, what are the common denominators? Okay, well, these 4 plays kind of fit what everyone likes. We're going to run these plays a million times. And then if they start having success, then you build upon those things. But I think it's very much like coaching a bunch of 7- and 8-year-olds. You got to give them confidence and you got to speak positivity. When everyone around them is being negative, the head coach and all the coaches got to be real positive. Hey, man, you can do this. It sounds crazy that we're talking about a pro team like this, but the mentality of pros and high school people is not really different. You got to build them up when they're losing to make them feel like they can do it. If you're having success, then you can be hard on them. But when they're losing, you have to be your most positive that you can be. And it's not only your words, it's your body language. They can never look at you and feel like you've given up on them because then they'll give up on themselves.
Yeah, Bucky, with everything going on with the Jaguars and the way the season has gotten started, like Doug Peterson is a guy who has a good reputation as a head coach, a Super Bowl champion. Trent Baalke is a guy who has a questionable reputation for how his relationship with Jim Harbaugh unraveled, how it unraveled the San Francisco 49ers, and kind of how things got started in Jacksonville. Then they had a ramp up, and now it's kind of ramping back down. If the Jaguars don't meet expectations this year, they're real close to already hitting that. It's a team that was 8-3 a year ago and looked like they were going to be the class of the division. Are either or both of those guys on a hot seat?
So here's the thing, and it's one of the things that you hope owners understand, and you try and take a step away view. The Jaguars have only had 3 winning seasons in like the last 15 years. 2 of those have come at the hands of Doug Peterson. So we can talk about how bad it's been of late. You also have to be realistic. You've gone back-to-back 9 and 8 years. And even though it wasn't the way that you wanted to end last year, it still was a winning season.
Yeah.
If you pull the plug on that, I think you're being premature and you don't have top level. You don't have the toughness to endure to get to the other side. So I would say everyone needs to pause. You need to kind of squash some of the media speculation that, hey, they're going to be fired, because this is what we do on our side. We talk about these things or whatever, and you got to let him work it out. You got to let the players work it out. That said, you know that owners hear a lot of stuff from outside. They look at TV, they hear all the talk shows, they look at the fans, they see who's coming to games, and that has an impact. So you have to be aware that, yeah, hey, it's tenuous, it's not great. It is one of those situations where we got to turn it around, but you can't allow that to impact your decisions when it comes to the team. But yeah, both guys are probably under warm seats where it's heating up anytime you lose the amount of games they've lost in a row. Yeah, like it's a little warm. It's a little warm on this seat right now.
Man, me and you talked about, might have been spring. Me and you talked about basically some high expectations for Trevor Lawrence. We both kind of agreed, like, hey, he's a good quarterback. He should be the boom, boom, boom. Did the first 3 games, has anything changed in your mind from his level of play? Is he still top 15, a starter in this league, or is he now, you know what, I'm debating if even he's a top 15 guy in the league from his performances the first 3 games?
I will equate it like this. Once you pay the quarterback like you paid him, the expectations change. And the same thing could go in Houston when they eventually break off CJ Stroud. The expectations are going to go from him being good and getting to the team to the playoffs to, hey, man, Super Bowl is kind of like where we're going. If we don't make the Super Bowl, it's a disappointment. What I saw from Trevor Lawrence on Monday night and watching Josh Allen, because to me, that was like a measuring stick game. Hey, let's see their quarterback against our quarterback. Where does he stack up? Trevor's not there yet. Trevor's not playing at a level where he can put the team on his back. He hasn't done that. And all of the conversation about the contract is going to continue to escalate until he starts playing at a level that you can understand why the Jaguars paid him. Right now, there's a large part. I mean, look, a large part of the football world is wondering, why did they pay Trevor Lawrence when they had 2 years left and he hasn't played at that level? He hears that. He has to step his game up. And I love Trevor Lawrence, but look, man, facts over feelings. The facts are he hasn't played at that level that you expect the guy making $55 million annually should play. He has to pick up his play. He has to handle it. And he not only has to handle it with his own performance, he has to bring the team with him. That's part of the gig. When you're the QB1, you're the franchise quarterback in the $50 million club, you got to raise the level of the team. And he hasn't done that yet.
Hey, real quick, Pat, he said something. He said Josh Allen was elite. I know you're kind of maybe on the other end of that, Pat.
Pat's not a Josh Allen fan? You're not a Josh Allen fan?
I think Josh Allen's a good quarterback. I do. I think he's a really good quarterback. I just don't think he is, Patrick Mahomes level quarterback. And I work with a lot of people that all seem to think that he is as good or better than Patrick Mahomes. And I feel like that's there's some pausing and some breaking that needs to be done on that.
So here's what, Pat, I'm more with you than I wasn't. It wasn't until I watched him this year up close and in person. And the reason I was always hard on him, I go all the way back to watching him in person at the Potato Bowl when he was coming out. And I was like, man, this is a great athletic quarterback, big. He checks off the boxes that. But, I mean, his completion percentage wasn't great in college. He had a great year where he played at an MVP level for Buffalo. But really, he's good. He's not in there. I will say this, and they told me, the people that work in the front office in Buffalo told me addition by subtraction, which is weird because the guy that we are talking about is now in Houston. But they felt like they had to remove Stephon Diggs from the equation for him fully to grow. And my personal experience, I watched it with Brett Favre. They removed Sterling Sharp. Brett Favre doesn't have the crutch that, I'm only going to throw to 84. Now I have to learn to play the position and utilize all of the options within the routes to get this team going. The Josh Allen that I saw on Monday night, he's doing that. He's now playing the game without feeling like I need to throw it to Stephon whenever I'm in trouble. Oh, where's Stephon at? I'm going to throw it to him. And it's made him grow his game. It's made him grow as a leader. And because of that, we're seeing a better guy. The other thing that has happened is playing in the league for as long as he's played, I would say the maturity has come out. He's learning how to pick and choose when to be the super athlete and when to play from the pocket. When you watch him now, he utilizes his legs on scrambles and in the red zone. Before, he was running around all the time doing it. He's now more selective when he puts the game on his shoulders in terms of being the super athlete to run. That is going to allow him to play longer, but remain just as dangerous. Just like Patrick Mahomes, he doesn't use his legs, into the postseason. Patrick Mahomes will play one way the entire regular season, but when it gets to winning time, that's all of a sudden when Patrick Mahomes becomes the runner because he knows he has that. It's playing smarter, not harder, but that's what the great ones are able to do. They master that, and they understand when to kind of jump in and jump out of that.
So I'm with you. Like, I think that Josh Allen's played really well. And the fact that he doesn't have a real number one wide receiver this year, and he has spread the ball around, and like Keon Coleman looks pretty good. Dalton Kincaid's a really good tight end, young guy. Where I need to see, or what I'm looking for to see for Josh Allen to go from, hey, I'm good to, hey, I'm on that top 4 elite level is number one. You know, you mentioned, hey, Brett Favre lost Sterling Sharp. Well, then he found Antonio Freeman. You know, can he make one of his guys, like Keon Coleman, can he make him the new number one by elevating that guy's level? And number two, when you play in the big games and the important games and the tough games, you can't turn the ball over in the fourth quarter. And he has had a track record of really just turnovers at crucial times, late in games, trying to either do too much or, you know, basically trying to do too much, trying to make plays and win games. If you can eliminate those turnovers in fourth quarters of those big games, and you can elevate one of your receivers to be a number one type guy, then I will just tip my hat to Josh Allen and say, all the tools, all the talent, you've put it all together, and now you really are one of those top 4 quarterbacks in the league.
Yeah, I'm with you. That's next level stuff, right? So next level stuff is being able to elevate those around you. And it's important that you can do that because once the quarterback gets paid at a certain level, hey, bud, we can't give you all of these other amenities and luxuries. You're the luxury. You got to make all these guys better. And so what we saw from Pat Mahomes is when they removed Tyreek Hill, his game evolved and he became a more dangerous quarterback because he not only could do the stuff that he could do with Tyreek Hill when it was big play and splash play, it was fun. He then could become the managerial type. I can dink and dunk and utilize all my running backs and all that to move us down the field and make the plays that I need to make. Josh Allen has to show that. And it's funny because then I'll bring this back to Trevor Lawrence. When I'm watching the game on Monday night, Josh Allen and Trevor Lawrence, I was saying, I hope Trevor is looking at what Josh Allen is doing. And I hope he tries to become a little more like that than what he's been. Because when I look at the two, Josh Allen and Trevor Lawrence, it reminds me of the old movie Top Gun. You remember in Top Gun when Tom Cruise was Maverick and he was reckless and out of control and he would just try and do all the tricks or whatever. And then Val Kilmer was Ice. And he was like, hey, man, nah, you gotta wait. It has to be the perfect shot. Trevor Lawrence is Ice. He wants everything to be perfect before he goes, where Josh Allen is just a little more reckless and carefree. The great quarterbacks can go to that edge where they're just reckless enough to make those critical throws, but they know when to dial it back and say, no, I don't need that now. Trevor Lawrence needs to learn how to be a little more reckless as opposed to being so conservative because the Jags need him to be special. And the special ones are special in the fourth quarter, like you're talking about, which is why it's so surprising that C.J. Stroud did it without a number one, and now you're giving him more weapons later. It normally doesn't work like that. Normally, when you're younger, you need more of the veterans to carry you. C.J. Stroud was carrying the guys before but he's year in carrying the guys. That's why I think he is really, really, really special.
All right, Bucky, what is your expectation for the game Sunday at NRG, the Texans and the Jaguars? What's your prediction for the game?
Well, my prediction is there's going to be a game. They're going to kick it off, and someone's going to win and someone's going to lose.
There you go.
My hope is that the Jaguars show up and play. But for me to sit here and say that the 0-3 Jaguars are going to walk into H-Town without confidence and they're going to put it down, it's hard for me to say that. I can hope for that, but I can't confidently say that, hey, that's what it's going to be, just based on what I've witnessed. I can't say that. But what I can say is if Houston messes it up a little bit and gives them life, they absolutely can do it. Because last week I saw the Panthers knock out the Raiders, and it didn't appear they had a shot. I'm not saying that the Jags are like the Panthers, but I'm saying if Houston doesn't bring their A game, they can open the door for the Jaguars to get a big win on the road that changes the season, and it now makes the division a dogfight. So if I'm Houston, I'm motivated to knock the Jags out because if you look around at the rest of the division, who are really the contenders? If the Jags are 0-4, if the Tennessee Titans are either 0-4 or 1-3, the only team that you have to worry about are the Colts. With Anthony Richardson, how good is he in comparison? The Texans can go a long way to sewing up the division with how they play on Sunday.
He is Bucky Brooks, 5-year NFL veteran, former Super Bowl champion. Now with NFL Network, he hosts the Believe in Jaguars podcast, as well as part of the Jacksonville Jaguars radio broadcast team. Bucky, really appreciate you taking some time with us today. Thank you very much. And maybe we'll get to see you on Sunday.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it'll be a party. I'll be on the sideline there. I'm hoping that it's going to be a good game. I'm hoping that we have something to talk about.
Appreciate you, Bucky. Thank you.